All right, I think we're live tonight. First and foremost, want to say good evening to everybody tonight on a very special night of our Omega Chi Black History Month series. As always, we just want to remind everyone to please share this live and then make sure you take a second and make sure that you are liking our Facebook page and following us on Facebook and Instagram at Omega Chi 1957. And also, please make sure that you're subscribing to our YouTube channel at Omega Chi 1957. Bro Bosses, I'm gonna throw it over to you. It's gonna throw it over to Bro Washington.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. We have a great guest tonight, man. We have another host tonight, man. It's a great day, man. You know, we've been hosting alone, but we had some help tonight, and man, we definitely appreciate it. We have a great guest tonight, man. It's an awesome story. I heard it in college and just thought it would be nice for everyone else to hear it. And I actually thought it would be amazing if his son came in and helped us out. To my frat brother and pro fight brother, Stephen Washington, 09 Tail, dog. Oh yeah. Hey, man, appreciate you being here, dog. Q. Hey, man, it's your show. Go ahead and take over.
Good evening, y'all. Good evening, brothers. First of all, I'd like to say it's a pleasure and honor for me to be a part of this Black History Month Conversation series. It's also an honor for me to be able to introduce tonight's guest. Very special guy to me. He's my father, Pastor Stephen Washington, a pastor at Trinity Lutheran Church in Selma. Good evening, Rev. I call him Pop.
That's me. Evening.
Hey man, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, sir. We're excited to get into the conversation with you tonight.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Most definitely.
Good evening, Pop. What's going on?
Oh, no, I'm doing really, really well, guys. Thank you guys so much for just giving me the chance to talk a little bit about myself. I hope I don't embarrass y'all. But let me begin with just a personal commendation to your organization, to each of you individually. You guys have been outstanding in our community. I know personally over at the church when there's a need, without even asking, I look around and I see big, healthy guys, ready, sleeves rolled up and ready to help out regarding anything that is an outreach in our community. You guys have ears to the ground, and that's just outstanding work. So I just thank you for what you're doing, your service, your work to our community. You're known, and thanks again for allowing me the opportunity to be a part of this series.
Most definitely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. I guess we can get into it. We're just gonna have a little conversation about you, Pop, and your experiences growing up during racial and segregated times. And we're gonna start off with our first question. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, yeah. Stephen Washington, little guy who was a brother of one sister, and I had four. Well, it was five guys, so four of the brothers grew up right there in Woodlawn area, Tuskegee Crest, near the High Chaparral. For those of you who know about some of the parts of the city, and went to a little elementary school, which is right there in the neighborhood, Henry Jefferson Oliver School. And it's the weirdest thing. It went from, first through the eighth grade. That's not weird. But of course, we had no type of athletics or anything like that. It was just, learning. Recess was our get out and do things time. So I had really no foundation in terms of, thinking in terms of sports, which I really, really loved. I really was excited about it when I began to see things on TV and picking out favorite teams as a little kid growing up, whether that was baseball, basketball, or football. But I didn't have a chance to be a part of any kind of team or anything. So we did really, really well in learning a lot of things about our books, studies, and things like that. We were pretty sharp, but I didn't find it out until when I went to high school down in Woodlawn, my first year there, 1969. And, the teacher was asking some questions in the science class. I had never gone into a tiered auditorium where kids sat, and it was that many kids at one time, and she's asking questions about things that we had studied and pretty much mastered. But one of my friends, a guy by the name of Roger Grisby, he also was one of the original football players there at Woodlawn. We were just ninth graders, and every question she'd ask, we raised our hands and we'd answer them. And the lady, after a few minutes, she just began to look around, and I really realized then that our teachers had done a really great job, a fantastic job, really, with us and teaching us. We may not have liked it then, but they did a really good job of getting us prepared. And I say that because other than Roderick and I, there may have been maybe a couple other kids, if that many, who were in this large auditorium of freshmen in that particular science section, and we were the only ones that were Black. And so we stood out in more ways than one. So that's kind of my foundation. I really valued that growing up, and it was a real chance to get some roots into academics and moving forward. And so I really treasure that as I look back on it.
Okay, that's what's up. A lot of interesting things there. You talked a little bit about you growing up in Woodlawn and going to high school. Can you tell us a little bit about your times growing up in Birmingham as a young boy doing those segregated times?
Oh, mercy, yeah. We didn't we didn't have a lot of things happening right around in our neighborhood. But during those years, early 60s, I was able to see and hear a lot about what was going on, mostly downtown. I remember one day in particular, my dad had taken me, my older brother, I'm second, me, Jeff, and I believe Roderick right up under me, three of us, plus my dad, took us down to the Carver Theater, right on 4th Avenue. So we walked in on a Saturday, I think it was. Yeah, I'm sure. And it was just, regular, nothing going on or whatever. And about halfway through the movie, somebody came in from the back and said, "Hey, y'all better leave. It's getting ready to get rowdy out here." We walked out, and I mean, the whole streets were just packed with people. And just being as young as I was, I didn't quite get the understanding of it, but I knew it was something that had to do with this stuff that was going on regarding the racial issues of the day, and they were really reaching a high point. And I wish I had really asked about that particular day. What was it? What was that demonstration? What was that about? Was it a reaction to something that had happened, or was it a planned thing? But I mean, just like that, the streets were packed with people, and Daddy just kind of gobbled us up and wanted to make sure that we were protected. He took us on back, took us to the car, and we left downtown. So that was something that I really, really remember, that event, and it really stood out to me. And I remember very clearly, even to this day, about how Daddy got us out of there, and without us being exposed to any kind of harm physically. So that's something I really, really appreciate. My brother Jeff, he remembers that Sunday morning when the church was bombed. He was a little older than me, and so he said he can recall being on the front porch with my dad, and they heard this loud boom. We lived a good little way away from downtown over in Woodlawn. And but he said he heard it, and it was really loud even that far away. And of course, later on, found out it was the bombing of that church. And I don't remember that, but I remember Jeff, my older brother, telling me about it. He talks about it from time to time, and it was really something that he logged that into his mind, and that events, it was something he remembered. And of course, when I in '69, when I walked down and I first went to high school, the Woodlawn, That year, I think, might have been the second year that integration had taken place, but it had not been mandatory. It was open, and there were a few black students who had matriculated over to Woodlawn High School. I mean, just a few. But when the first year of it being something that was mandatory, uh, and I don't know, it wasn't the highest level of being mandatory, because the next year is when they really my second year is when things really, second and third year in high school is when they really there became a big influx of black students over to Woodlawn. So that first year, we come there to school, we walk to school, and we always go in the congregate in the back of the auditorium, and about for 20 minutes or so before school started, talking, joking, having fun. A few of us who were there, and we go ahead and go our separate ways, and we be in our classes. It was really kind of a difficult journey from time to time. I remember in one class, this one kid would just, he was right here, and he was to my right, and he just kind of looked to his left at me and kind of look, and I see him doing stuff like, "Hey, look at this guy," And I was pretty, feisty. I sat there, I was pretty cool, and I mean, he kept doing it, and so I kind of looked at him, and and gave him a message with my eyes that, hey, just break that on down. And sure enough, later on, I guess I don't know what triggered it. I kind of got into a little scuffle with him, and it must have really shocked him or surprised him that somebody was blowing up. But and he never, from that point on, we were still freshmen. He was real peaceful and mannerable. And I don't know if I was getting out of my lane too much there, but I just knew that I had kind of a temper. Hey, he brought it on out. But it brought some peace, at least between that young man and me. And so that was early on in it, and it kind of got me ready, keep my eyes open, and make sure I understood what the deal was.
If I've learned one thing, these conversations is I've got so much respect for you, Pastor Washington, and so many other people we've talked to, because the things that you all went through and endured.
Yeah. It was it didn't really get bad, in terms of the conflict between the students until really my senior year. I don't know. I guess it just kind of was at a slow boil. It was building up, and it just kind of exploded during Black History Week back then. We all were in the auditorium. We were having a Black History program, and I was up on the stage, and the auditorium was out there, so we had an upper level and a lower level, so I could see both levels. But that in high school, of course, you got the half period bell would ring, and obviously there had been something set up or planned or organized. But right in the middle of that program, during the activity period, the half period bell rang, and all the white students, the top and the bottom, all got up at the same time and just walked out. And I knew that they couldn't see each other because one was the upper deck and the lower deck. So I said, hey, they had to work that out, ahead of time. So when that bell rang, everybody just scattered. And it was at that point, from that point on, it really began to get really, really nasty with the races, and until we had some big brawls, some really big brawls, and it was kind of heartbreaking, but it was just inevitable that was going to happen. And I just think, I thank God that after that, after that year, I think things began to get a little bit better, a little nicer. but that was a breaking. That was a kind of a breaking point for that inevitability. When the races were actually at a point where, hey, we got to do this, but we don't have to. We don't have to like it. Both sides. The black students didn't want to be there. And many of them. And of course, because many of them had come from Hayes High School, but they lived in the Woodlawn zone, and they didn't really, want to do that. They had started their own relationships with their friends at their high school. So, it was a little tension on both sides, and it just came to a boil. I remember that real clearly. Yeah.
Gotcha. You you kind of hit our next question, but I kind of want to expand a little bit more on it. You already talked about how the desegregating of the school was.
Yeah.
I know one thing that I've heard from a lot of people are, how were your grades? Did teacher tamper with your grades? Were they kind of biased? Were they like kind of more understanding for the white kids, or did they kind of like, was there differentiation amongst the teachers, or did they accept you for who you were?
Yeah, I found that I was treated fairly. I don't remember hearing any other of the other students talking about having problems that they felt in terms of being mistreated by their teachers. I mean, you had to work, and if you didn't do the work, it reflected in your grade. So no, I personally did not hear it, or I did not experience it. I because I made sure I applied myself. I knew I had to do something that I knew that I would have to look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, you didn't apply yourself, or you didn't try. So that wasn't a problem. I didn't have any problems, doing my work at all, and it reflected. But if a person didn't, that also reflected as well. But there were also, as the years kind of came, one of the things that I kind of realized now was that the faculty also reflected uh, the integration process. So, I mean, not all of my teachers were white. I had classes with some black teachers as well. Yeah.
Gotcha. My next question. I know you kind of touched on your senior year. I know when you talked about in your younger years you didn't have sports, but I know once you got to Woodlawn, you kind of got a chance to experience sports, and you ended up going to college to play football, if I'm not correct, and you ended up attending Baylor University. And how was that experience at Baylor, and was it any difference from Texas to Alabama? Like, was there any like racial deficit, or did it kind of pick right back up when you got there?
Yeah. I was able to play sports, there at Woodlawn, and because I had this, like I said, this energy and desire to want to do that. And so when I got there as a freshman, I know myself and maybe two other guys, one of whom recently passed, one of my friends, Ricky Jones. He went over to, of course, he started at Tuskegee and started in the NFL as well. But we lost Ricky a little while ago, about a couple years ago now. And so Roger Grisby, and I made it all the way through freshman, sophomore, and our junior and senior year. There were quite a few other black athletes that joined and were willing to come out. But I was also able to play baseball. I didn't play basketball, uh, but I played baseball and football there at Woodlawn, and it was quite a an experience there. In my junior year, I believe I may have been the only junior to start, but I also was the first African American to play varsity on that team. And that was my junior year. And of course, the next year we had a few more guys who came in, friends of ours that came and got involved. And of course, the rest, as they say, is history. as far as the legacy of Woodlawn football players go, because there's quite a few guys who come through and did well on every level. But yeah, and actually my first year out of my senior year, the Lord really, my deeper drive and my deeper heart was with, of course, seeking what the will of God was. And I I had no real plans in terms of what I was going to do with college. I just know that after my senior year, I must have done well enough to have some people interested in me, and so I began to get some coaches would call me in and hear some letters from different schools. But they weren't the D1 schools at that time. They were, um, people like Livingston and West Alabama now, if that's still the name. Sanford, of course, I went ahead and went there. North Alabama. So I had some of the smaller schools around that were interested, and I found that kind of odd too because I appreciate whatever the coaches did, obviously, but they never gave me any contacted me about any HBCUs, and I don't know if that's were they filtering or whatever, but I know also that I leave it up to the discretion of God, the Holy Spirit, how that worked out. And so without having any real plans or whatever about what to do, I ended up accepting a scholarship to play football at Sanford as a freshman. And that at the end of that year, during the spring, we all were brought in by the coaching staff, and they had some administrators in, and they all talked about, and they gave us a long spiel. And I remember sitting back against the wall with all the guys, the whole football team in there. And I looked at the guy next to me and said, is he saying they're going to drop football? And so they sure, they did just that. It was a money issue. And that's something that many institutions face, that, private, and the money is always the number one consideration for maintaining your program, especially athletics. And so after that, I had a pretty good year, my freshman year. It must have been pretty impressive because I started getting some of these other schools to visit, and the coach from Baylor came out. One of the coaches, he had been at Tennessee. He had been at one of the other schools up in Tennessee, where it was a smaller school on the level at what we had played, but he was also at Tennessee. And so he came out, Coach Dal Shealy, that was his name, and looked at my film, called up Coach Taft, and said, "We want you to come out and take a look, visit." I went out there, man. I had a steak about the size of this computer screen. I tried to eat it all, but I couldn't make it. I said, "Yeah, I think I like it out here," So I did get a scholarship to play football out at Baylor. It was a big difference, between Texas. What struck me was the guys. The team, the makeup of the guys. Now, in high school, things were like this level. When I went to Sanford, they were like this, and when I went to Baylor, it was like first guy I met. I went to his room after we eating dinner, and I mean, this guy comes out looking like a strength coach, big old muscular man to cut, and I think he was like the second string fullback. I was like, oh, I think I better go home, So I remember that, and I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this. I'm not quite this size, But I adapted. My eyes got, everything began to get into focus. Yeah, I did get a chance to enjoy that pleasure of being recruited twice. That was kind of nice, And the Lord led me on out there to Baylor.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think it's safe to say that God has definitely played a role and a huge part in every step from high school to college, Sanford, Baylor, and so one of the
Yeah.
questions I want to ask that sort of kind of goes from that Baylor experience to where you are now is, can you talk about as far as how your life experiences have definitely molded you into the man, the pastor, the father, the person that you are today?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Yeah, the football and the athletics and things like that, even baseball, which I dearly love, in fact, I stayed with that long than anything. Um, but like I said before, the current underneath that was the strongest was, listening to the Lord in terms of what I sensed that he really wanted in my life. So there were some very difficult times out at Baylor with just your social life, being on a team where you were just regimented in every way, every part of the year. Curfew, they woke you up with a knock on your door at 7 o'clock every morning, and you were at about 10:30 every night. You went and watched film, and 11 o'clock lights out, and I mean that was just your life, the whole time. And I had to develop the discipline to make sure that I stayed in the library in between, because by the time practice is over and you eat your dinner, you got just a little time to get over in the library, and you have to really hit it, study, get yourself done with your work, because later on the coaches will have you again. And they were really serious. I remember one time I was a little late coming in. Uh, I don't know how I got caught being just a few minutes late. But the coach is out there waiting the next day. Hey, I wasn't late again. I can tell you that. I mean, he ran me to death, and that's after practice. And so I said, man, Coach, I thought we were cool. I was like, look, I joke and jump rope, but I don't play.
But didn't you win the championship at Baylor though? Like with all that work and all at the end?
We did. That was my freshman year when I first got out. We ended up winning the Southwest Conference Championship,
That is awesome.
and we played Penn State in the Cotton Bowl, and they beat us 40-20. I guess I had to be completely honest all the way. But that was fine. Hey, that was the first time in 50 years Baylor had won the championship, Southwest Conference Championship. So I had my ring back there. We had a reunion a few years ago, and got a chance to see some of the guys. I keep up with many of them, but just to see some of them that I hadn't seen or spoken with in a while, that was really nice. But I had a lot of good experiences, a lot of good fellowship. I mean, awesome fellowship with those guys. Not only was it a grind for football, but we bonded as men of God. Many of us did. We had an outstanding Fellowship of Christian Athletes program, and it really helped me to get rooted in my faith, but also the discipline of being a Christian, to being an athlete, being someone that people knew who wore those hats, and just trusting that the Spirit will give me the strength to walk hand in hand with Him. And it was difficult, but the Lord was really by my side and kept me strong and faithful, and I knew that my calling would be someday to uh, to hopefully to lead God's people, to teach God's word, whether that would be through some other type of campus ministry. At the time, I considered Campus Crusade for Christ. That's I don't know if that still exists, but you have to get your your sponsors. They would gather. They'd help you get people to pay every month so much money, whatever they could commit to, and then of course that would be how you made it, and you would be assigned to a college campus somewhere, and you'd be responsible for discipling kids, fellow students, and so forth. But I remember, and I attended Senior Panic down in Austin, south of Waco, and that's a place where they see if those of us who wanted to really pursue a career with Campus Crusade for Christ, whether they really wanted to do it and to make that decision, they were ready to help. I remember getting out of the car when we got back to Waco, and at that moment, it was like, the verse in Proverbs that says, the plans of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. And they said, well, hey, what do you want to do? We need you. I was black. They needed some black staff. And I said, I'm just going to go ahead and go home. And so I came home, and I'm glad I did, because the Lord led me to take the steps to not only meet my wife and have a family subsequent to the years after that, but also rather than go into another type of ministry, I went to the seminary.
Listen, I know all about having to follow what God says to that move, because that's exactly what brought me to Selma. And so I get it 1000%. Me growing up in Selma, and I've watched you and the church and the things that you've done over the years. Being a member of Ebenezer, which is of course right around the corner from Trinity
Yes.
Lutheran. We there are a lot of things that we've done together. We've seen you all are very active, a lot of food giveaways, things of that nature. And so would you say the moment that you talked about was the moment that may have sparked you to decide to come to Selma, or what was it that really determined, like, okay, God, I see it, this is it? What was
Yeah.
that?
Well, again, it was after seminary, which is my years there in St. Louis. We have two seminaries here, primarily in the United States: Fort Wayne, Indiana, and St. Louis, Missouri. And so I attended the one there, enrolled the one there in St. Louis. And after that, I had my first congregation in Shreveport, Louisiana. After serving there for about a couple of years, we took a call to Christ Lutheran Church, which is in Tuscaloosa, and so Sean was born in Shreveport, and so when my wife and I and a little baby, we came to Tuscaloosa. I served Christ Lutheran Church there in Tuscaloosa for close to a couple of years. And then, of course, I got a call, a couple of visits to come to speak at chapel at Concordia. And I did that. And Dr. Jenkins, after a while, staying in contact with me, sent me a call to come and serve as chaplain, and also to be involved with coaching. And again, that was the perfect prescription for me, coaching and serving the Lord too. So early on, I remember a couple of guys said, Coach Rev. I said, okay, that sums it up. Coach Rev, And so that's the reason that was the Spirit's leading to getting me here to Selma.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, listen, I have thoroughly enjoyed just listening to your story and just hearing everything that you've gone through from Birmingham all the way over to Baylor, then coming back here eventually to Selma. And so, listen, tonight has been great. Once again, thank you so much, brother Washington. Thank you for being our extra host on tonight. We might need to start bringing you back because you fell into that thing naturally. I'm talking to Steve, little Steve.
Oh yeah, do it.
You fell into that thing real natural when you started that thing off. I just want you to know that I paid attention.
Dog, I ain't know you were born in Shreveport, so but look, you really from the boot.
I see.
You really from the boot out here. I didn't know you were born in Louisiana. You ain't look. You were just raised here, but you're from Louisiana. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah. Bro Bosilis, I'm throwing it back over to you.
Brother Washington, man, we appreciate you, man. Just expressing yourself, man. Some of the stuff that I heard you say was definitely eye-opening. Especially about the Birmingham church bombing. I can only imagine how that affected the city of Birmingham. And even though you weren't that experienced, a lot of times to have a relative that can just tell a story and place you in that moment tells a lot for you as a person. And and I know that things and hearing those things and seeing that march coming out of the movies played an important part of probably being a productive citizen in this world we live in, because I know your senior year, it took a lot of patience, man. School lasts 180 days. And I can believe that was 180 days of turmoil. And you got to watch your back. You can't go in the bathroom by yourself. You at practice kind of looking over your shoulder. And to be the only black athlete on the field, so out of 11 people, you were one. So it's 10 other white people you really got to watch out for at practice. And I can only imagine how mentally that had you, hey, I'm here to win. I'm here to be a team player, but also I'm the only black person out here. And I can only imagine how that was, because even though during that time frame you knew who your enemies were, I know God had you covered.
He did.
Because that's stressful. Like, it's 10 white people on the other side of me, or whatever side you play defense, offense, it's 10 other white people. And in the locker room, even when you won, I know it still was a damper, because they probably didn't give you the treatment that you really desired as a winner.
Well, I can't. We didn't have in my junior or senior year of what I would call great years. I thought we had some really talented guys.
Mm-hmm.
We had a few guys that received scholarships. And off of a high school football team, if you got and I would imagine we probably had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 6 or 7 guys that got scholarships. That's a sign that there was some pretty good talent there.
Right.
But of course in Birmingham, and the 5A schools is what they were in, which we were. It was just heavy competition all the way around. It was a lot of competition all the way around, both in all sports. So if we ended up 7-3 or something like that, 8-2, that really wasn't that wasn't good enough, really, because that team were really, really talented. Montgomery School.
The run the play. I mean, to run the town, you had to be undefeated for real.
You pretty much did. I don't remember anybody losing a game, and actually, it could have been some people who lost a game that won state 5A, but you couldn't have any glitches. Nah.
I feel like y'all had to be that relentless. You had to be twice as good, so you can even be taken seriously, by the athletic associations of that time.
Yeah. It was. I mean, like I said, it was the Lord doing it, because all we did is play football out in the street pretty much every day as kids. But I tell you what, I mean, I was throwing and catching, and whatever the skills that allowed me a chance to become a starter from my freshman year on. I had mastered those. I was able to catch it and do whatever I needed to do. So I didn't have to have any practice on that sort of stuff. But that was not me. That was just the Lord. And when I got into that situation as a freshman, it put me in a position to where I could use it and stay out there. And I just I didn't think about anything. I'm gonna tell you the thing about sports. If it gets into your head, you can't even throw a ball back to the first base. If you're a pitcher, and your mind is bad, you try to lob a ball of furs, you'll throw it in the stands. So you don't, if you start to think too much. And so when I went to Woodlawn, I didn't really think of anything. I saw the ball and then I caught it. And I knew you had to go run for a touchdown, and I did it. And I was like, I was surprised that folks were clapping or whatever. I was like, what's going on? I'm just out here doing what we do every day on the street. I didn't hear anybody clap or whatever. So, but then later on, when you start getting into that limelight, and the competition is there too, that's a lot more, aggressive. You can begin to get into a head game, and you might drop a pass, and you're thinking, man, what happened just then? Well, you thought too much, So that's just a little tip for any of the young fellas out there. Don't think, just go ahead and just have fun and do it. Right.
Well, man, we definitely appreciate you, like, for being here. Steve, we appreciate you. That story was definitely humbling to know that a young black man ended up, man. Birmingham was a tough place in the 60s. So
yeah,
if you came out of that the way you did, God really had you covered, because there's so many stories of people who don't get those opportunities, who didn't get that. So for you to come out of there with the way you did, going to Sanford, and it's crazy because even though God knew you needed to go to Sanford, he knew if you didn't go to Sanford, you wouldn't have went to Baylor. So he put you in the right position to be accepted by a bigger program and to witness the championship your freshman year. And add to that, some people don't even get to witness that throughout their whole career playing sports. So everything was aligned, man. It's truly a blessing. And the message that I got from you today, man, is if you keep God first, man, everything else is going to follow. And even though you got your own plan, hey, man, just follow his will and everything else will be done. So
that's right.
I sincerely appreciate you, man. God bless you. Man,
Thank you.
For all our viewers for watching, man. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, man. You guys have a great night, and everyone stay blessed.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.